Well, greetings everybody. Great to be with you once again. And as I record this, it's in Holy Week leading up to Easter 2021. And I hope your Easter celebrations are going to be deep and meaningful and rich and reflective as you encounter God in a fresh new way at this time. And have you ever heard the statement, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is? I guess we've all heard that and pondered that over time, but maybe we could just twist that question a little way today and say, has anything that seemed so horrible and so bad, could it in any way be good? And in a sense, that's the paradox of Easter. As we meditate on Good Friday, the answer to that question is yes, something that does seem so horrible can actually turn out for good. And that's the center of our Christian faith, in a sense, the radical paradox that the most horrible thing that ever happened in human history was actually the most wonderful thing that happened in human history. And as we consider the cross of Jesus Christ on Good Friday, we'd be thinking about maybe if we were one of Jesus' followers in the day, we would have felt that the crucifixion had made no sense. The world was out of control, the bad guys have won, and darkness is winning the day. But in actual fact, that wasn't the case. And back in the day, they would have been, Jesus' family and followers would have been asking, is it possible that anything more terrible, more unjust could happen than what has happened to Jesus? And the sense of that is just beyond comprehension in so many ways. Could any loss be more painful? Could any suffering be worse than what happened to Jesus? And those closest to Jesus, they've been listening to him more than anybody else. And they had to recall what Jesus had been saying to them over the years that they'd been walking with him. They had to recall what they'd been listening to, both with their heads and their hearts, during this awful crucifixion time. And last week, we spent some time just considering how we listen and what it means to listen with our hearts. And I think the resurrection narrative actually gives us an important example and an important lesson of what it is and how important it is to listen. Let's read in Luke 24, 8-12. And this is in the context of the women going to the empty tomb and finding that that Jesus wasn't there. And picking it up in verse 8, it says this: "And they remembered his words. Then they returned from the tomb and told all these things to the 11 and all the rest. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of Jesus, and the other women with them who told all these things to the apostles. And their words seemed to them like idle tales, and they did not believe them. But Peter arose and ran to the tomb, and stooping down, he saw the linen cloths lying there by themselves, and he departed, marveling to himself at what had happened." And I just pose a question to you today. Are we still living like the disciples prior to the resurrection? Are we like Mary when she rushed to the tomb to find it empty? And she was so full of disappointment and distracted by her discouragement that she actually failed to see Jesus standing right next to her. After the year that we've just had and experienced, it's maybe hard to believe that the tomb is empty. It may be hard to believe that there is resurrection life behind everything that we've experienced. Maybe it's hard to believe, and we're failing to see Jesus standing right next to us in the midst of our circumstances that can at times be so catastrophic. But we need to be careful of how we make sense of our life. What looks like a disaster may actually be, in fact, the grace of God at work for us. What looks like the end may be the beginning. What looks hopeless may be God's instrument to give us real and lasting hope. Remember his words. That Luke scripture begins with that statement. Remember his words. Your Father is committed to taking what seems so bad and turning into something that is very, very good. Remember his words. The same God who planned Good Friday is your Father. He rules over every moment in your life, and in powerful grace, he can do for you just what he did in redemptive history. Take what seems so bad and turn it into something that is very, very good. Remember his words. He takes the disasters of our life and turns them to tools of redemption. He takes our failure and employs it as a tool of grace, and he uses death of the fallen world to motivate us to reach out for life. Remember his words. The most challenging things in our life can become the sweetest tools of grace in his wise and loving hands when we remember his words. I was reading something recently, an organisation from the States called the Barna Group, and they do studies and research into Christian, how the world is viewing Christians and that sort of thing. And they identified that part of evangelism obviously is talking, but an even more profound part of evangelism, and the research has shown this, that listening is crucial. And they unearthed this research that found listening without judgment is the number one quality that non-Christians or lapsed Christians look for when seeking out a person to talk about faith. Listening without judgment. I think that, the research turned up to say that only a minority that they've found, 34% of those people that they researched actually knew a Christian like that, who could listen without judgment. Maybe the encouragement to us this Easter for us is to be one of those people that listens without judgment. What an incredible quality to possess and to demonstrate as an act of love towards people. And this Easter, as we remember his words and we listen with our heart to those that are reaching out to us, that are maybe far from God, we might just be the bridge of grace that helps them come back to Christ in some meaningful or powerful way. So as we embrace the paradox that Easter is, I pray your blessing over you and your family at this time. God bless, and listen with your hearts and listen without judgment, and remember the words of Jesus. God bless.